how do you define the balance between token usage? When is it worth it? When is it not worth it? And how do you manage it?
Basically, what you need to know is you need to know when to use each model. Each one increases in terms of reasoning capability and also in terms of how much their token costs.
I've also seen use cases where you have one agent, that's the orchestrator, and that one decides which sub-agent to use based on a task. So how do you find that?
From my understanding, the only model that can create sub-agents is
AI is so powerful, like it'd be crazy not to use it for leverage. But at the same time, right, like we got to make sure the work is quality. How would you work around that?
What I would say is do not ban your staff from not using AI. That's basically how you end up with shadow AI deployments, where staff would just use their personal ChatGPT and put your company stuff data into it.
I know you worked with the enterprise, but you've done some unique work with the European Airspace Agency. How did you get into the area that you work in?
Yeah, half of my career essentially has been in engineering. The other half has been in AI.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode on the HighLevel Experience podcast. Our guest today brings a slightly different perspective to the show. He's not coming from the usual HighLevel agency background, but that's exactly why I think this conversation will be valuable. He's a chartered engineer, AI consultant, trainer, and author who works with engineering organizations on moving AI from experimentation into real operational use. And what I find interesting is that his role is not just about let's plug ChatGPT into a workflow and see what happens. He works in environments where accuracy, governance, data control, documentation, safety, and trust really matter. He's led AI deployments for organizations including the European Space Agency, rail, manufacturing, infrastructure, and other technical sectors where AI can create a lot of efficiency, but where getting it wrong can also create serious problems. He's also the founder of Build Your AI, where he helps teams identify practical AI use cases, build internal capability, and put better processes around AI adoption. So today, I want to unpack what agency owners, SaaSpreneurs, and small business operators can learn from that more structured engineering approach to AI. How do we identify better use cases? How do we stop AI from becoming just another shiny tool? How do we build systems that save time, improve quality, and actually pass internal checks? And how do we help businesses adopt AI in a way that is useful, safe, and commercially practical? Please welcome to the show, Ali Parandeh.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Vit, for the introduction. It was excellent, amazing. But yeah, I'm happy here to answer any questions you might have. And definitely we can start with talking about where do you even find AI use cases? How do you find what's a good use case? Where do you go to find them? How do you actually sit down and brainstorm ideas? So definitely something we'll be interested to talk about as well in that area.
Yeah, definitely. Let's dive right in. Use cases is important because AI can be technical for us, HighLevel as, I don't know how much you know about HighLevel actually, whilst I got you.
Feel free to give an introduction. There might be people, okay. There might be listeners as well who are not familiar.
Well, there you go. That's an interesting one. Yeah. So what HighLevel is, it's an all-in-one sales and marketing CRM founded back in 2018 by a marketing agency that was fulfillment, campaigns, projects for clients, always required patching up different things together, Zapier and all that. And with every project, it just became insane to manage all that. So they set to build something internal for their use case. And I'm just regurgitating what Robin Alex, one of the founders, he was on the show, explained the story. So they built something that combined two-way SMS, marketing, CRM, omni-channel inbox, a couple other things that back then weren't that common. I mean, there was big giants like HubSpot and Salesforce and all those, but they've come up with something pretty amazing. And before you know it, other agencies were like, we want to use it too. So long story short, where we are now is HighLevel is a platform that you pay a license, you can white label it, you can use it for your agency, and you can create unlimited sub-accounts, and each sub-account being one of your clients, and you can either not give them access to it and just purely use it as a way to build campaigns, plug in Facebook lead ads into it, nurture all that good stuff. Or you can actually do a SaaS model where you sell it to other businesses with a markup. You can even rebill on things like email, SMS, phone calls, AI, a lot of that. So think about it like if you could consolidate all of the different subscriptions that typical business owners have. Maybe they've got email marketing through MailChimp. They have Twilio for phone and this SMS. They have something else. They're paying all these subscriptions separately and are using platforms that are not integrated. And the only way to integrate them is use Zapier and stuff like that. And that's still painful. But you don't really have a centralized place. So HighLevel is the solution. HighLevel, I'm a big HighLevel nerd, been using it for the last 6 years. We sell it through our own agency called Stand Out from the Pack to small local business, small and medium-sized businesses, mostly in Australia. And this podcast, it's a culmination of just loving the platform, being a big nerd and hanging out with other people that are using it and sharing successful stories, strategies, what works. So it's pretty unique to have you here as somebody that's not a high leveler, yet very related to what we all do, because especially with AI being such a big thing now, and every day it just keeps innovating, keeps evolving every day by day, right? I mean, Gemini,
Yeah, that's true.
Mythos, just all that, it's just nuts. So when I was looking at your LinkedIn profile and I was looking at your expertise and where you come from, it was pretty interesting to me because what I saw was an engineer. It's very technical type of career that you've had based on, again, what I've observed. And one repeated topic that I saw in some of your posts was regarding safety, compliance, redundancies, working in the enterprise sector where these things are really important. And then bringing it back in my head, like, how does that relate to what we do? We help smaller businesses, small to medium-sized businesses. But I think all that around compliance and trust and all that stuff, I think it's going to be more and more important because the industry is really maturing. AI is no longer just this, it just got out of the bag. That was like 4 years ago, ChatGPT, everybody's like, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But now I'm seeing this shift where it's like, it's really maturing and there are more requirements. It's no longer talking to businesses and they're like, what is AI or how do I even use it? Now it's like, yeah, we use it or we want to use it. We know what it does, but we want to make sure that we're safe and that it's not me super expensive because so anyway, I don't want to steal your thunder, but that kind of like just giving a bit of a backstory to why you're here, to the guys who are listening, and why I think it's going to be beneficial for you guys to continue to listen what we're about to dive into.
No, sounds good. You are definitely right. It is getting to a stage where a lot of enterprises are now starting to play with it. Some of them have successfully started adopting it to a stage, and there are still some of them who are still early in their journey. Like what they're doing is maybe get some Copilot licenses, and that's their AI adoption in their heads. And still the employees have to go and start requesting these licenses, and they're not really getting into more advanced tools like, I don't know, Hicksfield and Claude or any of those other subscriptions where small agencies and small companies have that pace and speed when it comes to AI adoption and start using those specific skills. And the main driver is with big enterprise, they're way slower. They need to want to have all their AI policies in place and make sure that it's safe, their data is safe, it's private, it's not going to random servers around the world. And those things kind of slows them down. But it means that also that they are more articulated than you think. They have more understanding of what AI is and where it's used. But in some areas, what they're doing mostly with it is summarizing emails and summarizing documents. That's the use case that they're meddling with, some of them. Whereas others are a bit more advanced. Others are like even building their own bespoke models on top of their own data sets. Like they're doing machine learning on top of this data, which is a way more advanced use case when it comes to using AI, rather than just using Copilot or ChatGPT or Claude. But what I've seen with more smaller enterprises, smaller companies, especially the ones that are more tech savvy, they're doing a lot more work with Claude. Claude subscription, especially because it can code, it can do design, it can do all of those things for agencies and for smaller enterprises. Claude and ChatGPT Plus, like the team enterprise version, are essentially their go-to digital brain and AI system when it comes to all of these automations and innovations when it comes to adoption, AI adoption. Whereas bigger enterprises were mostly Copilot. So Copilot Enterprise and Copilot. And some of them you would see that they would go with these enterprises around Anthropic Claude or ChatGPT.
So it's going to be very interesting because us smaller agencies, we are a lot more nimble with this stuff.
Yeah.
We are experimenting a lot more. And oftentimes we are using more cutting edge stuff than the enterprise sector might, right? So it's giving us a competitive advantage, and the clients that we help the same.
Exactly.
You know, HighLevel just announced last week a native MCP with Claude Code, so that you can get methods directly into HighLevel. And you think
I was going to ask you about that actually. Can I connect my Claude agent to it and talk to the HighLevel directly?
Anything you want. I mean, HighLevel has a native function called Ask AI. So that's built in. You just talk to it. But you can also connect it to your own Claude Code through the MCP, and it does anything you want. Hey, go through the CRM and surface up the 20 contacts that are most likely to close in the next 30 days based on the history of, based on data.
That is, I think, where we're going with 2026, 2027 is that people don't really like to go into UIs anymore and click around. They want to just talk to the AI assistant, and AI assistant uses the MCP to talk to the systems under the hood. Especially when you're doing like weekly alignments or monthly alignments or doing quarterly reviews and stuff, instead of going into a UI and clicking around, you just open a chat and say, run this skill, run the weekly alignment skill for me and fetch the information for me and let's talk about it and analyze it.
Yeah.
And write back to the system.
And more, like anything's possible, really. Like the other day, I was like looking at adoption. How do we improve adoption for our customers who sign up through our white label so that they can adopt the HighLevel more effectively? It's a big thing for us. It's a big thing that I'm seeing across the SaaS industry, HighLevel SaaS industry, that you get a smaller business, a new customer who are going through this digital transformation, and they access the account, and then suddenly there's so much, right? It's like I said, it's all in one, sales and marketing. It's got all the tool sets, CRM, you can build funnels, you can do voice AI, you can do anything you can think of, really robust automation workflows, anything. And then they get in and they get overwhelmed. So adoption for us is always like, how do we make sure that they have a great experience, they get wins quickly, so they can really quickly see the return. Because the risk is, whilst it's an amazing toolbox with a lot of tools and it can really do anything, is that you can get analysis paralysis and you don't use it for anything, and then you just look at it as a subscription cost and you cancel. Doesn't really happen for us, touch wood, but some churn still happens over time. And so adoption is really important. And with Ask AI, with ability to, that was what I was leaning into the other day. I was talking to it and I said, look, I want to build a new course that's purely about adoption for new users, picking 5 most easy turnkey features that business can start using right away. One of them being reputation management, just by connecting your Google your Google business listing, and being able to send out review requests and then have AI to respond to reviews for you. And then if it's a 5-star, to automatically schedule and post in your socials. That's one of those like really easy ones. But even then, businesses don't know about it, right? So I just spoke to Ask AI and said, hey, so this is one of them. And can you think of 3 other features that are really like off the box, like off the shelf, really work well, really quickly, and build me a course? And so in HighLevel, there's a section called memberships, and inside memberships, you can create your own dedicated customer portal that they can log into. And in the portal, they can access courses, they can access a private community, they can access billing, if you have that turned on, all that. And it did it. It just, because Ask AI is fully connected with all the other feature sets of HighLevel, it just went and did it. And then actually, it created lessons, it created categories of the whole course, descriptions of the lessons. The only thing that was left for me to do was just, there's a placeholder where you can upload the videos.
So because you had the MCP connector connected, the AI assistant could use the MCP connector to create those resources in the tool into HighLevel. And all you had to do is go back and forth. So your workflow as a user would be to just open a chat and say, I'm thinking of creating this course, create the community space for me and add these courses in and add these lessons. And then you just basically go back and forth in the chat and you will go work through your course content, your lessons, all inside the chat. And something like Claude keeps pushing the information into the platform instead of like you having to suddenly learn the entire user interface compared to being in a similar interface, which is just your chat interface inside Claude. And I think that's basically the trend that's going to be upcoming inside 2027, 2026 is experience of users with software. It's not going to be, you don't have to sit down and learn user interfaces anymore. You can just connect the MCP. The AI assistants will know how to talk to the different interfaces of the platforms to fetch data and manipulate data and create records.
Yeah, pretty much. But I think the caveat to that is the ability of AI to action stuff is all based on a context and is all based on how clean and organized your CRM is. So for example, if you got a pipeline full of opportunities inside HighLevel and it's messy and you haven't really been managing your pipelines, keeping it up to date, then the HighLevel doesn't know. The AI wouldn't know it. The AI would take that for granted. And then if you ask, go through my pipeline and surface up 3 biggest opportunities coming up. But if the pipeline is not accurate, it's not going to work. So I think the combination, I don't know, like I was going to say, is I think the combination is going to be having an admin team or VAs who are keeping it up to date, who are like a sales team maybe, who are really managing the CRM really well. And they're still leveraging AI too, but keeping the contact records and everything up to date so that the AI agent component to it works with an accurate,
Yeah, I see what you mean. I think that there is that element of maintaining it and upkeep it, definitely. I think there is also the element of if you don't maintain it, and then when it comes to connecting your AI assistant to it, there is a context rot because of all that missing information or incorrect information getting fed into the context of the chat and polluting it, confusing the AI. But you can now set schedules. There are features in tools like Claude where you can set a timer and a scheduled conversation where it runs a cleaning operation for you. So he would essentially fetch the information, but with the purpose of cleaning the information and flagging these records seem out of date. Do you want me to clean them for you? And you should just say yes to reduce the burden of you having to go through or even having the whole admin team going through, because then AI can just quickly bulk edit or bulk delete a bunch of records without you having to go through, or an admin person having to go through all these different records, finding them and flagging them, especially because when you're looking at different columns, there would be elements in there where individual cells might not be enough for you to look at. You need to look at the entire row and the context of the entire row to decide whether that row needs to be deleted. And I think that's what AI is really good at, is to look at the entire row across lots of rows within its context. I think some of these models have like context window of 1 million tokens, which is about 750,000 words. So an encyclopedia worth of words can be fit in there. Obviously, you don't want to fill it up because it increases the chances of hallucination, but you can still use this up with, 200, 300, 400 records. I don't think people will have many records in their millions of rows, but 300 records is nothing compared to the context size. So you can actually even run periodical conversations on schedule in your Claude tool, in Claude Chat or Claude Code, to review the records for you and clean it up time to time.
Yeah, I think what this is called a cron job, isn't it? Setting these cron jobs.
Under the hood, it does cron jobs, but it is abstracted away from you as a user. You don't need to know coding or anything like that. You just basically, in Claude Desktop, you can run scheduled triggers, scheduled chats, basically. Routines, we call them routines. You can run weekly routines where on a Friday, it creates a chat, fetches the last 200 records from HighLevel using the MCP connector, and then runs an audit for you based on a checklist. You can create a checklist for what needs to look for. And then it would just basically use as human in the loop where it asks you, oh, these are the records, do you want me to delete them? So it wouldn't just delete them out of nothing. You would have to get the approval from you.
Yeah, it's an interesting area because I've been using Victor AI for the last couple of weeks, right? I've got it, you probably heard of it. I've got it connected through Slack, got it connected to a couple of things. And the token usage on that particular product is higher. They've got their own markups as well. But it's a brilliant product. But setting up these cron jobs, these repeated jobs that it does is very good because it's like a proactive team member on in your business that you don't always have to instruct to do things. It's really changing. But it's like, how do you define the balance between token usage? When is it worth it? When is it not worth it? And how do you manage it? And I think, again, from your perspective and your experience working in the enterprise sector, there's bigger scale and way bigger bills.
You may not realize this, but for the last 2 years, I've had a secret weapon that has made running my business inside of HighLevel so much easier. You see, there is so much that HighLevel can do, which is amazing, but it's a lot of work to stay up to date with it. And even more so if my customers are asking me questions about it. And this is why I'm excited to announce that our show is officially part of the HLPT Creator Network. This is HighLevel Pro Tools, an organization that I've been using to run support for my customers, as well as give me a ton of awesome epic add-ons that make running, launching, and differentiating my SaaS inside of HighLevel so much easier. And now that they're an official sponsor of the show, they've done something pretty bloody awesome. If you go to hlpt.com/experience, you can get one of their incredible tools absolutely for free. No purchase necessary, just for being a listener on the show. So head over to hlpt.com/experience, grab that free tool, and I promise you this is going to improve the conversion rates on your page. Check out all the other stuff that they offer and tell them that Vit sent you.
You know what's wild? There's a smarter way to grow your agency and help more local businesses without adding more stress. That's what HighLevel does. It's your all-in-one sales, marketing, automation, and AI system. No more duct taping tools together or paying for 20 different subscriptions that barely talk to each other. I've been using it for 5 years with my own white-level version, Stand Out from the Pack, helping Aussie businesses like Dimitri, a Canberra electrician, who now runs his jobs, quotes, calls, and follow-ups with our built-in AI employee. If you're an agency, HighLevel lets you do exactly that. Support your clients in new ways while building stable, recurring revenue every month. And if you're a local business, partner up with somebody who knows your market and your industry. If you're in Tasmania, my mate Jared from Boulder Digital, for example, has you covered. If you're in Canberra, that's my turf. Check out standoutfromthepack.com.au and we'll get you sorted. The point is, there's probably a high-level agency or SaaSpreneur near you. We're seasoned marketers, tech-savvy super nerds who love helping local businesses grow. We're global, we're connected, we're high-levelers. Now, I've got something really special for you guys. I've negotiated an exclusive 30-day HighLevel trial that's double the usual just for you. Sign up your agency through gohighlevel.com/Vit or upgrade your existing plan, and I'll hook you up with over $3,200 worth of bonuses, resources, templates, and snapshots I normally give to my private clients only. So whether you're scaling an agency or leveling up your business, start with the right system. Go highlevel.com/Vit or team up with your local SaaSpreneur and let's make business simple again. One platform, one login, no duct tape, just results.
So basically what you need to know is you need to know when to use each model. So for instance, I'm going to just stick with Claude models, but for the simplicity, we have Claude Haiku, Claude Sonnet, Claude Opus, and now Claude Fable, right? Each one increases in terms of reasoning capability and also in terms of how much their token cost. Haiku, 1 million tokens in and out would cost you, I don't know, less than $1. Fable, 1 million tokens in and out will cost you $60, right? So you can see how much it's going to burn for your credits if you use that. Don't go and use Fable to clean up your CRM. Use something cheaper. So use either a Sonnet or Haiku model, because these are essentially for like low-level mechanical tasks that you just basically give to a junior to do. Think of your team as a junior, senior, principal, and technical director. You don't go and give a technical director a spreadsheet and data entry task on your team, would you? You're paying them £100,000 £100,000 a year, for instance, right? You're not going to give them data spreadsheet entry work. You're going to give them more strategic level work. Go come up with a strategy to increase our sales by 20% in the next year. Yeah. Whereas for the junior, like a graduate entry or an intern, you would give them a data entry work. So I think it's the same thing here. If you use for enterprise grade work where we're running billions of tokens a day. So I've built data processing pipelines for a mortgage enterprise in the US as part of my previous roles, where we had to process 1 billion tokens a day. So that's 1 million PDFs, data extraction and validation, right? Through ChatGPT APIs. Now that one is basically you're looking at one encyclopedia worth of data processing. And for that one, you're not going to have to use, for them, the price didn't really matter because they had lots of money. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to run it across really big models like Opus or Fable. What you want to do is you want to run it through smaller models and Haiku. So always start with small one, do a small test run and see how good it is, and then go up one level. Don't always start from the beginning. And I think the mistake people make is for most business owners, they just basically default on Opus. And then they realize why their credits are running out. Or Fable. Like Fable, one of the exercises I did when Fable came out, I went and asked Fable, when should I use you and when should I not use you compared to Opus like 4.8? And he gave me a really good list. Like if you look at the benchmarks, like the leaderboards of how Fable compares to Sonnet and Opus, Fable is really good at spatial reasoning and multi-level, which is basically like understanding 3D space.
Yeah.
So if you're going to be working on a 3D model app, or you have data that's more CAD data, or you have data that's point clouds, LiDAR data scans, you want to like generate tool paths for a manufacturing machine, like CNC machine, and you want it to be able to understand that, or you want to design a completely new website that's completely like amazing, interesting design. That's when you use Fable. Whereas Opus is for more general, everyday, complex coding tasks. And also Fable is really useful if you have a lot of interconnected documents that you need to reason over. So super complicated logical reasoning stuff, not for data cleaning, entry, that kind of tasks. That's where Fable is good. And like when I tried it, like I got Fable to design me a 3D model of a satellite dish just with code. And you could like literally scan it, view it in 3D, a 3D model of an HVAC unit, and then create the code for CNC machine that manufactures it using subtractive manufacturing, that kind of stuff you can do with Fable.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And so understanding that is critical, but that's also if you're using it day to day and you are the one that's changing the models. I've also seen use cases where you have one agent, that's the orchestrator, and that one decides which sub-agent to use based on a task. So how do you find that?
From my understanding, the only model that can create sub-agents is Fable. So one workflow I tried it on is I went to the London Tech Week a few weeks ago where I recorded about 40 sessions, like their transcripts. And I got Fable. I set a screenshot of my Notion database to Fable, nothing else. And I said, go and fetch all these records, figure out all the records in the database that's related to this Tech Week, fetch all the transcripts, and check every claim in every transcript against sources on the web, and then create me an infographic, a research report, and a document, like a HTML interactive document with all the sources, like showing me like which ones verified, which was unverified. So that's the task I ran Fable on. And this was like during a workshop I was doing with one of the automotive companies when I was showing them the demonstration. What happened was it took 20 minutes for Fable to finish, but what it was interesting, Fable created 6 sub-agents during the process, handing off 15 transcripts to each sub-agent to go and check across the web. So each sub-agent was doing like 100 different data source checks. And like they figured out like some of the claims were partial. He verified about 60% of the claims and 30% of the claims are unverified. So for instance, if one of the claims was saying that there was this cybersecurity incident and the UK economy had a loss of £2 billion, it was saying no, it was 2.1 billion.
Right.
So it did this kind of stuff that was more sophisticated, but they probably burned through a lot of tokens doing that. 20 minutes.
And you didn't ask Fable to create those sub-agents. So
no, all I said is just go fetch the transcripts, make a bunch of reports and infographics, but check every claim in them.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's
In
wow.
Yeah,
I
so
mean,
that
Fable is so new. I haven't had a chance to fully dive into it. I know the US had put a restriction on it, and now they've opened it up again. Yeah,
I
it's
think
very impressive.
yeah, I think I did like I think some went to use Cloud Fable chats. Let me bring it up. So basically these are when you want to use Fable and when you don't want to use Fable. So multi-day or multi-hour autonomous runs in Cloud Code. Like if you're doing large refactors, migrations, and building like complex features for your apps, if you're a SaaS owner, SaaS company, complex multi-step implementations where errors compound, one-shotting full apps or UI-heavy prototypes, where it can self-criticize its own outputs against design. So one of the things I did notice what Fable does when I ask it to create 3D models is that it would render the model once it creates it, because it cannot actually see the models, it's just writing code.
Yeah.
It renders the model for itself, takes screenshot of the model from different angles and looks at the screenshot because it can't read the images in. You see how crazy it is? So it can look at a satellite dish from different angles to see if it has modeled it correctly. And then if it hasn't, it goes back and fixes it.
Wow. Yeah.
Like
that's
that's the
impressive.
kind of stuff it can do. Like it can self-criticize without you having to ask. It can check its own work. And one of the biggest problems I've seen with enterprises not trusting AI is that the AI that they have access to oftentimes can create slop. And especially when juniors use it, that slop can then get into the hands of customers, which can damage any brand, any consultancy brand. So if you're an agency owner, imagine like sending AI slop reports to customers and they entirely lose their trust and credibility in the process, which happened to the big four. Like all the big four companies, if you look at the news, like PwC, like EY, all of these companies got into big troubles because of AI generated reports they sent to governments and stuff, and they had to then cut staff down because of the damage it got to them. So
Yeah, those big consulting firms. Yeah. So, what's the workaround? How do you make sure that there is quality? Because you still, I mean, AI is so powerful. Like, it'd be crazy not to use it for leverage. But at
yeah.
the same time, right? Like, we got to make sure the work is quality. How would you work around that?
So what I would say is do not ban your staff or yourself from not using AI, because that's the ultimate place to get. That's basically how you end up with shadow AI deployments, where staff would just use their personal ChatGPT and put your company stuff data into it. If you just ban yourself and staff from using AI, they're just still going to use it, but they're not going to use your approved AI provider.
That's a good point. They want
Right?
to be
So that,
productive, right?
yeah, so they want to be productive. They know it can be done in a minute. They're not going to be willing to sit there and do it for a week, especially if it's like some admin work. So the banning AI is not the solution. And enterprises that try to ban AI and not give people a good tool to use, they will end up having to do shadow AI deployments they can't control, where staff will just use email their info to themselves and then put it into their chat GPT, right? The right way to do it is you need to implement AI policies and AI processes in your organization. So what I mean by that is when I was working as an engineering firm, engineering consultancy back in the day, this was before all the chat GPT, we had a process called OKRA. Have you heard of it?
No.
No. So it stands for originator, checker, reviewer, and authorizer or approver.
Okay.
Each role had specific checklists to follow when an output was produced by the originator, right? So the originator had a checklist to check through. The checker had a checklist. The authorizer had a checklist. And only the documents that have passed through OKRA could go to the customer or would go to the client. And this was pre-AI. This was even like manually drafted documents that could have human mistakes in it. Now with
Yeah.
AI, you could have slop going into documents. Like a slop basically means AI content that doesn't really give you any insights. It's not consistent with the rest of the document because it's been prompted across different chats. Different people have prompted AI indifferently. And the other thing AI has in terms of mistakes, it can hallucinate facts. It can hallucinate citations. So the big four got into trouble because their citations were hallucinated.
Right.
And it could also use hidden assumptions that are incorrect. That doesn't tell you. So like you would produce a document with some hidden assumptions until you tell it, right? Two of the prompts you can try right now with your AI assistant is ask it, if I eat 500 kilocalories a day for the next 10 years above my calorie limit, how fat am I going to get? And see what it tells you.
Well, let me try that. I'm actually interested in that one. Hang on. 500 calories daily, yeah? Okay.
500 calories daily above my calorie limit for the next 10 years.
If I eat 500 calories daily above my calorie limit for the next 10 years, How
fat
much more overweight will I be? All right, let me hit go on that one. All right, so thinking, I'm using ChatGPT just.
You might have gotten better, but if you get
Yeah,
anything resembling a straight line going all the way to 400 kilograms, that's how you know the kind of mistakes it's making. Or if the BMI it's giving you goes above a certain limit.
It's currently just checking through the websites. I've got it on a high model.
That reduces the chances of mistake. But
Yeah.
another thing you can try, like normally small models will make mistakes on this, is I have a car I need to wash. The car wash is 50 meters away. Should I walk or drive?
Yeah. So I've got the return on that one. So it says, assuming your calorie limit means your current maintenance calories, then simple math answer, 500 extra calories per day by 365 days by 10 E's is 1 million 1,800,000 extra calories. More realistic answer, you probably would not gain 236 kilos. As your body gets heavier, your maintenance calories rise. So the same 500 calorie surplus becomes smaller relative to your new body size. Yeah, I mean, I think this is pretty good. But
It is
yeah,
pretty good.
By basically, so substance is what we want. We don't want just AI slop. Like even like in my use case, content for content marketing, right? Articles, socials, all that. These days, if it's just vanilla, it's like it doesn't really cut through anything, and it doesn't get noticed by people, and it certainly doesn't get noticed for SEO. Well, that's a whole other conversation, but right.
What I've heard is AI written content does have efficiency, doesn't have efficacy.
Yeah, it doesn't have the substance. Yeah.
It
And
doesn't,
then if
it
you
doesn't
do
carry
push
the
it
emotion.
for substance, that's when the AI can try harder and sometimes can try to please you and hallucinate just for the sake of.
It can mimic you to some extent. If you set the styles correctly and you give it enough context, it can mimic you, but it doesn't have the efficacy. So it doesn't carry the emotion that a copy would carry.
Right.
Like if you sit down and write a copy for your marketing landing page or for a newsletter and you want to persuade people, AI has a harder time persuading and carrying the emotion.
Yeah, that aspect. I'm prompting it with a particular copywriting style, so I haven't really found that be the case as much. But I guess all comes down to prompting, doesn't it? Ali, I want to shift our conversation a little bit and just maybe outline a bit of a backstory, just your career journey, what it's been like, and how did you get to where you're now? And then I'd like to dive in more into the use cases that are going to be very relevant to our audience, especially with small to medium-sized businesses. I know you worked with the enterprise, but you've done some unique work with the European Aerospace Agency. Sounds pretty cool. So yeah, I think that'd be great area to dive into. But first, like, how did you get into like the area that you work in?
Yeah, definitely. So half of my career essentially has been in engineering. So this is traditional systems engineering, mechanical engineering, that kind of areas. The other half has been in AI. The way it works is that back in the day, I used to be a rail engineer when I started at Atkins. So it was a huge consultancy that they do. They basically they basically design the railways, the infrastructure that you basically experience day in, day out. So they're a massive consultancy doing design of infrastructure, working for governments and big construction organizations. It was after a couple of years working there that I then started gradually learning Python, learning data science technologies and AI technologies, machine learning, and started trying to implement some of these, especially when we were doing some modeling work on some of the rail and infrastructure projects. We normally used to use MATLAB. I started translating that code into Python and developing the models in the Python for the clients. In the same time, started doing hackathons. So this is essentially where you do 2-day competitions trying to build solutions to infrastructure problems. And the company that was organizing those hackathons called Crosstech, they essentially got interested and they hired me to run some of the projects that they were leading, to essentially take some of these ideas forward to build into products and to also build new products on the way as well. So they were essentially more like a hybrid consultancy technology firm focused on computer vision as a specialty, supplying the rail market. So some of the products I built for them include line-side vegetation management detection, where you put a camera in front of a train and the camera essentially constructs a 3D space and figures out the distance of vegetation to the track. Because if the vegetation grows, it can drop onto the overhead line equipment and cause fire. And all it was doing is basically using a phone camera. So you come to
not even like a LiDAR sensor required, just a regular phone camera.
Just a regular phone camera. You take a video, construct 3D point space, and figure out essentially like the distances based on that and detect violations just from that. And it would give you a dashboard with a map with all the violations on it. And essentially it's a big, massive market right now, blind spot vegetation detection. But I work on other products as well, like passenger counting, where you install a camera on a bus, look down, and it counts people on and off the bus by just looking at their heads. Sub-threshold delay analysis analytics tools, as well as developing the network Rails lifts and escalators API. So if you're building a software, you can essentially hook into this API and read the status of every lift and escalator in UK, in the country. Right? Okay. So if you're building like an app like a city mapper.
Yeah.
So these are essentially some of the projects I worked on in the AI space. I left after a couple of years working there. I've started working for an AI data science consultancy in London called Applied Data Science Partners, and they specialized in language models. So they specialize in AI modeling and also language models, and they essentially develop a lot of solutions and products for variety of different markets, not necessarily engineering, retail, education, finance, cybersecurity, and that's also where I worked with European Space Agency and some of the other bigger clients like retail clients, the finance clients, and so on. So with them, like we developed AI chatbots for schools where students can use AI chatbot to ask questions about the school information. We built lots of different AI agents for schools and for various different enterprises to do a variety of different tasks, from filling forms to talking to databases. And this was like in the early times of MCP. So MCP wasn't there before, so we were building some of these connectors by hand.
Yeah.
And then left there and started my own AI consultancy and training, focusing mostly on engineering markets. So rail, oil and gas, construction, automotive manufacturing. So a lot of the work I've been doing now is essentially upskilling some of the engineers to help them come up with, identify use cases where they think AI is useful, because they have access to data sets that most of the public don't. So they know how these data sets can be made into AI systems, and essentially helping them identify these use cases and helping them building them some of these use cases into AI solutions that actually meet infrastructure challenges. So like engineering challenges like in manufacturing and infrastructure, rail, and so on. So I think these are the areas where I don't see a lot of SaaS companies like target, where most SaaS companies might go after business or enterprise or retail, whereas engineering is like a ripe market, I think, where there's a lot of use cases, but there aren't many software solutions.
That's interesting. Okay, so I think this is a good segue into defining use case, defining a problem, and coming up with solutions. I like to use a thing called double diamond. I'm sure you've heard of it, a double diamond. But I'd be curious to know from your, let's go with an example. Let's say for that European Aerospace Agency, you've done, I don't know if you can talk about it, but if you're not, then we can talk about another use case, another example. But when you work there, obviously the client have approached you guys for a particular problem, but how would you then define a solution? Like what goes into the process? Because I'm thinking this could be relevant to the listeners, and then bringing it, just getting an idea, so that when we are working with small businesses, let me explain another way. So we do using HighLevel for businesses, and they're very commercially viable and scalable, but that only solves a particular problem that businesses, and most common problem that businesses come to you for. Hey, we need more leads, or we need a way to convert more leads. But I like to look at the full thing, right? Because business is not just about sales and acquiring customers. Ultimately, business should also be about profitability. And there are other areas of business that impact profitability, right? It's not just sales. It's the operations. So there's a lot of other use cases that I'm not seeing in the high-level space people talk about much, but I know they are there because I know that I've applied some of those solutions to clients, whether it was fulfillment and breaking it down. But there's a lot of opportunities, put it that way. And I think it'd be really cool to get that perspective example from you working with those bigger companies, and what goes into that process of defining a problem in the first place even.
Yeah, so no, that's a good question. Essentially, The main thing is with bigger enterprises, especially larger institutions and companies, it is much harder for smaller enterprises and smaller companies to get contracts with them. Oftentimes, what you need to have is you need to show they have a procurement department, and sometimes you need to go through a bidding process. And as part of the bidding process, they will vet for things like cyber security practices you follow. Do you have certifications such as Cyber Essentials Plus, ISO 27001? Do you have an information security management system? Do you have a quality management system? So these are all the essential stuff that you need to have as a small business if you want to get those bigger projects. And oftentimes what happens is if you are a consultancy or an agency with more experience, you can essentially get these contracts and subcontract them to smaller companies. But if you're a small company, you normally will have to become a subcontractor of a prime contractor working on these tools if you want to go there. With the case of European Space Agency, they essentially knew what they wanted. So they put a bid out in terms of they wanted to see how a generative AI can be used in design of satellites, basically. How can generative AI be used to optimize satellite design and be used for designing satellite components? Because they had seen that NASA, for instance, had already done some of this work. So they got inspired, or there was a commercial push from competitors such as NASA, US Space Agency, how they have done this, and we need to get on this as well. And this is a public case study at the moment. You can essentially look it up, and this was something that we carried out with my previous employer. But with essentially identifying new use cases for bigger customers or big enterprise or in areas you haven't, it's not very visible, essentially what you need to do is you need to go back and instead of thinking about AI and what solutions might be relevant for it, what problems are relevant for it, you need to flip it around. So a lot of people search solutions in search of a problem, whereas instead you need to flip it around and look at all the problems in the market and see which ones are interesting. And then you can then and then essentially not all the problems will have AI as a solution. And just focus on the problem that has the highest impact, not necessarily if it's got AI in it. If anything, most of the time these days, I actually promote people to solve solutions without AI. Solve problems without AI because it's more deterministic. AI is a statistical model. It's based on probabilities. And every time you put the same stuff in it, it gives you different stuff coming out, right? Ask it to write you an essay about, I don't know, business. It will give you a different, completely essay every time. The wordings might be different.
You bring in a really good point because also the cost comes into mind. I've been a huge fan of building automation workflows, and inside in our high-level world, we have a thing called snapshot. You open up a sub account and you've defined a problem and you're trying to solve it. And the solution might be that you need to build a funnel for a lead gen, then build an automation that nurtures leads. And after you've had enough data, you can average out the typical results on conversion. So you need to build some automations. You need to build maybe some unique custom fields for the CRM because the business use case has a unique data they need to capture. And all together, it's a system. And then you snapshot it, and then that gives you scale because now you can load it into multiple sub-accounts or you can sell it to other agencies. So where I was going with that, just lost my train of thought. But
something to do with fields, creating these fields, creating snapshots.
No, yeah, I know where I was going with this because you mentioned defining a problem is important, and then the solution doesn't always have to be AI because AI is being probabilistic, whereas other solutions might be more deterministic. Automation workflows by design are more deterministic because you've got a set of rules. A trigger, if this, then that, if this, then that, and then that happens exactly, right? So it's cheaper as well when it comes to automation workflows as opposed to AI. And so that's an area, again, it's another really good discussion point. I think deserves a whole episode talking about when to use AI or when to use automations and when to use both and how you design the solution the right way and what ratio. Because if the solution is completely built on AI, that means every time it's running, every time it's going to incur a cost, right?
Yeah,
so it's an interesting area.
I'll give you an example. People are creating these automations and then they put AI in it, like N18 automation where it's got a chatbot doing, I don't know, document classification or email triage. That stuff might not necessarily need AI because you may write a simple rules-based check that will classify it more deterministically for you compared to using AI, because sometimes AI may return nothing as well. Sometimes it may fail, the connection may drop, the latency might be too high, and then the whole automation may time out. And sometimes it may not follow your prompt. That when you give a prompt to an AI, it doesn't need to follow it. There is no legal contract for it to follow that prompt. In the AI space, we call it alignment. So it depends on the model you use. Some models have better alignments than the others, but you can't trust the prompt to follow that prompt all the time, depending on the inputs as well. I can send you an email, put prompt injection in that email, and then essentially get your whole automation go haywire. I can basically put in my email and invite text, ignore all previous instructions. Hi, Vit, how you doing? Blah, 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 blah. And I can literally haywire your automation because you're feeding the entirety of my email to your system. And the AI is reading that and thinking that it needs to do something with the instructions I give it.
Right. So this is a topic of how hackers are now getting savvy and they're injecting prompts and things. That's a whole other.
It's touching security as another opener, as like a subtopic as well. But it's both inconsistencies, but also security as an issue when you put AI in it. Whereas if you just put some kind of simple checks that would just check for things inside the email that would then help you to classify it, this always runs the same way. And it always buckets it really well. You don't necessarily need AI in there. If it's a very complicated logic, let's say you need to check a bunch of other databases and then do 5 different lookups and then check some logic in order to then classify an email, then yes, that makes a sense to use AI. But if it's just like a simple check, I don't know, labeling an email, is it promotional or not? Like that stuff may not necessarily need AI.
Yeah. So going back to defining a problem, the problem statement, it was a really good validation what you were saying, because going back to what I was saying, we use a thing called double diamond.
Yeah.
That's not thing that I've come up with. It's a thing from UK Design Council, right? So for those of you guys listening, just picture 2 diamonds as the shapes. And the first one is all about defining the problem statement. So how is this relevant to what you guys do? So you get a new client, or let's say you're starting out fresh. You just sign up for HighLevel and you're just trying to score your very first client. And you got no reputation, you got nothing to show for. There's an approach that works really well. It's called a student approach, where you literally just go around businesses and speak to the business owner and try pick their brain. Try and buy them a coffee or buy them a lunch, just so that you've got the opportunity to sit down with them for an hour. If you can do that, then that hour should be all about trying to understand the business and all the different problems that they run into when it comes to day-to-day. At the end of the day, they all want to be more profitable, right? So talk to them about what are different things that impact profitability in your business, Mr. Baker. Let's say you go to a local bakery, because why not? And there's always, you don't know what you don't know. What is this thing called, like the 5 levels of, forgot the name of it. You know what you know is the ultimate, but initially it's like you don't know what you don't know.
About Joe Harry's window, like you know what you know, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, so like you don't know what you don't know, then you know what you don't know, then you know what you know,
and then you don't know what you don't know.
Then you don't know what you know. Because but like it's something to do with confidence. It's a framework, right? Anyway, I don't want to detour too much, but so talking back to you guys listening, you're speaking to this baker, and you just want to pick their brain, talk to them about their business, and just be inquisitive, be genuinely curious. Make sure they know that you're genuinely curious because you're starting out something new and you just want to learn and you want to have an opportunity to see how you could provide value to them. And so what you need to be focusing on is, yes, you've just signed up for HighLevel and in your head, you know all the different features and functionalities and they're exciting, but that's solution. Trying to forget about that and just focus on that conversation with that business owner and just focus on all the different problems that they're stating. And going back to double diamond, that first diamond is all about figuring out the core problem statement. So each diamond is actually split in 2 halves. The first half is just open wide. There's no limits. It's just aggregating as much information as possible. All the different problems that they're telling you, document all of it. In the hardcore way, it's about talking to not just that one business owner, but maybe talking to their staff, talking to their customers, doing a research in that industry, talking to other bakers, and you just end up with massive amount of information, and it's all about different problem statements. And then you start to create a common, like you look at it, and then what you want to end up with, because it's not commercially viable thing, is you look at which one of those problems is the most common across all of those bakers that I've just met, and which one of those problems is the most common across all of their staff or all of their customers. And that might give you 3 core problems that are related to that business. And if there's a lot of overlap, then that's a problem worth solving, because if you come up with a solution, then you got something you can go to market and it's been proven, right? So that's where the second diamond comes in. The second diamond is all about figuring out what the most leanest, most effective, most scalable, most impactful solution could be. But again, to get to that core solution, it's going to be just like one thing, you're going to be prototyping. So that, again, so you're into that first half of the second diamond. It's all about open wide, no limits. You're brainstorming, you're coming up with some ideas, you're talking to those business owners again, getting feedback. There's a lot of feedback loop involved. And then that culminates into, again, seeing what the most effective solution would be. And then that's what you come up with, and then you go to market. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, exactly. I think double diamond, from what I understand, is you expand the problem, then you condense it down into a single point that then you can then use to expand the solution ideas, and then you then condense it down into a single valid solution for that problem.
Yeah.
Is that what I understood correctly?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good framework. Yeah, I like it.
I like
think
it. Yeah.
one idea I can give you is you can create yourself a cloud skill to follow this framework for you. So create a skill that would then expand, like you just give it a topic, that helps you ask your questions to expand the problem, and then condense it down into an item. And then once that gate it passes, it then can help you expand solutions and then condense it down into a single item. So like some kind of brainstorming skill, you can create these type of things as well for yourself with AI skills.
Hey, by the way, you know what I found about this framework? It's a brilliant way to position. If you're trying to sell a custom build to a business and charge a lot of money for it, this process allows you to do that, because you're essentially talking to a client and you're not just going straight up, okay, it's going to be this much. You're going through a process with them, so they are part of it. They can see how much thought goes into it. And then in the end, you say, put an example, the way I do it is I use ClickUp. In ClickUp, you've got a whiteboard, so you can create like mind maps and you can do like design systems visually. So I would use the double diamond where I would be talking to customers, all that stuff that we talked about. But then when it came to prototyping the ideal solution, I would actually map out visually what would sales pipeline look like, a custom opportunity stages inside HighLevel. What would they look like based on what they told me that their buyer journey is, and then their fulfillment processes. And then I would start mapping out everything else, custom fields, custom values, different workflows and automations, just overview, but all visually designed in a whiteboard. Then I would have another session with a client. I would show them what I've come up with as a prototype. They would look at it. They would tell me yay or nay, give me some more feedback. I would reiterate. And then at the end, I would have something that is very well defined. I can run AI against it, just to grab a screenshot, run it through AI and say, hey, how much do you reckon it would be in labor to build it in their HighLevel account? That gives you an estimate. Then you multiply it by an hourly rate that you pay yourself or you pay to a staff member. With, obviously, you should always have a markup because it's a business. And then that gives you the figure. And you go back to the client and you say, this is going to be $20,000 to build what we've done. And the client now has a context, which is important, because they are no longer looking at a figure. They're looking at the whiteboard. They see the complexity. They see the design. That, by the way, they've gone through that process with you when it was being designed. So they were part of it. So it's not like you've come up with something. And yeah, I've just found that a really cool way to sell high ticket. Obviously, you might, let's say it's 20K, you'd still 5K now and 5K middle, 10K at the end. You break it down, but nevertheless, that's how I do it. That's how I sell higher ticket builds for high level.
No, that's
But it's all based on starting with a conversation, the double diamond. And I even tell my clients, like, we use this principle of double diamond because we want to make sure that we come up with something that's going to be very effective for you. This process might take us a week or 2 or 3. I also tell them it's like there's a maturity to it, maturity to a decision. What I found is a sequence of an hour to 2 hour long meetings once a week. And in between those meetings, we get closer to the final design by letting it mature over a week. By the time we get to the second meeting, they've had a time to think about it. I've had a time to think about it. We're looking at it again. And yeah, it's just sharing it because
it's good. This is so what I do similar is I normally run a discovery session. So normally I do a 4-step process with customers. So one is some of the times you can sit down and help them through the problems, or some of the times they don't know anything about AI. So you need to first bring them up to speed with the tech and what is possible, what is not possible. So they have the literacy to be able to talk about problems. And then the second step where you do the discovery is exactly that, like talking with everyone within the team and within their teams. So some of them have bigger teams, so you need to talk to everyone and capturing all the information and essentially doing the double diamond here where you're expanding and figuring out all the problems and all the possible use cases that there is. And then essentially then using a framework. So you need to have some kind of way to then prioritize. So you need some kind of framework to then bring it back down into a handful of ideas and use cases. And then just presenting them, getting paid to them, creating this report to then present to them as a discovery. Like, this is basically these are the top problems of your business or your teams. Here are top 10 solutions mapped to these problems. Maybe not all the solutions are AI, but like probably a lot of them are automation related. And here is a sequence. We recommend you to go through these solutions and building them. And here's a code for building them. And then you can then use basically those, you can then essentially take each solution with AI, figure out how much effort it is to build, calculate your hourly rates, put a markup on top, and essentially create a big code, like a single code that could be worth 100K, 200K, because it's got 5-6 different projects baked in.
Yeah, you're talking different figures now here. Enterprise.
So with enterprise, you can sell big, but also you need smaller high. This is like super high ticket, but you need smaller high tickets in order to feed the business, because those bigger tickets will take months. So with enterprise, the sales cycles, you're looking at like quarters in terms of like sales cycles, because with bigger ticket items, they need to go and pitch it to the leadership team. They need to have buy-in, then they need to put budget in place, then the procurement needs to get involved, then the procurement needs to approve it, then you need to get a purchase order, then you can start the process, and then you also need to have upfront payments in place so that you can get fed. Your business can get fed whilst you are delivering. So the enterprise game for consulting is like basically like this. Either you're bidding for projects, which is easier because they already have the problems, you just have to provide a solution. But for smaller companies that are not big enterprise, but they're still big enough, like I would say mid-sized enterprise. For mid-sized enterprise, you need to essentially bring them on board through education-based selling, get the discovery in place and figure out the problems and map it to solutions, and then essentially quantify how each solution solves a problem. So it's either saving them cost or giving them higher margins, or I don't know, essentially changes brand perception, depending on like how you can quantify the return on investment.
Yeah.
And you can build prototypes. Yeah, and these days you can build prototypes really quickly with Cloud Code. So if you need to show that, look, you used to do this in 2 weeks, here's a simple HTML app that can do it in an hour, or not in an hour, you just drag and drop your file into it and it gives you something coming up. Just need to build it properly, secure, safe, we need 20K.
And when you start talking those figures, you might not be used to them, but like in those type of size clients, it's completely normal. It's actually be really weird if you were like underquoted to an enterprise client. They might even look at it as, we're probably not going to go with you because that sounds like too cheap. I don't think there's going to be quality, right?
One is that. The other one is you need to have a staircase. So you need to have a staircase of products. So you can't go and sell them 200K if they don't know you yet. So you need to sell them something low ticket to gradually increase the trust, and then upsell the higher ticket. Basically, this is a standard model as what we run
It's
with
no
lower
different. Yeah. It's just, we call that foot in the door offers, right?
Put it in the offers. Yeah. So you may start with day rates. You may start with, okay, we just charge, I don't know, this much for 2 days of work or 1 week of work. And to them, it's like, okay, start on 5K, 10K. Well, then you then figure out their problems because you've been in their teams and no one else knows their problems. You know it because you've been in, you've kicked the door. And then you can with that knowledge, you can give them proposals that are hard to say no to. You just need to make sure the deal and the offer you give them is valued really good and is fixed price. It gives you the margin, but to them it's, I don't know, 90% cheaper for them to do it manually than to give you that money to build it for them.
And you build trust, the walls goes down, more opportunities open up, and it's way easier to talk to them. It's no different to a dating game, actually.
Yeah.
You want to impress somebody first, build trust, then you get a second date. Maybe there's a bigger project coming up, and so on and so forth. So this is great. And guys, there was a few follow-ups that I was gonna, while you were talking, that came to my mind. So one, that double diamond process and the high ticket thing, do not use it if you're planning to sell something off the shelf. If you just want to sell subscription to HighLevel and sell them reputation management or something that's already been proven to work, and it's a solution that kind of works in general for most, let's say, brick and mortar businesses who have Google business listings, that process will actually kill conversion. If it's a small client, you're trying to sell something for a couple of $100 a month, that will kill conversion. In that case, you want to sell something that's heavily productized at scale. So make sure that you think about the use case and when to apply some of these strategies that we talk on the podcast, because I've done that mistake myself. I can even share one day. I've got these 20-page Canva, beautiful Canva proposals with visuals, with everything. It's incredible. I spent a half day on them to put them together, all for nothing. And then another time I was just like having a quick call, speaking to somebody. Whilst on a call, I vibe coded the new website because they didn't have a website. They were super impressed. They sign up on the spot before another call. So it's important to think about the audience, the target market you're talking to. If they're a really small micro business, they don't even have time. They need something now. So yeah, it's just an important distinction on that, I guess I wanted to highlight.
That's a good point. Yeah, if it's a productized offer and a software, you just basically need to map it to their problem.
Quick
mapping. Yeah, it doesn't need a sophisticated bespoke proposal. But if you're doing something higher ticket, or you're going to be asking for a lot of cash up front, then you need to give them more trust and like information, basically how it can. Essentially, you need to do more of the upfront work of selling it.
And expect longer sales cycle too. There's a whole science in it. Like I always think about it. Like, what would be the most ideal funnel where you've got a foot in the door? And by the way, the way I like to think about foot in the door offers, they are not all offers to make money for an actual like transaction in money. Sometimes the foot in the door offer is purely for the transaction of getting them to opt in for something. So now you've got their email address. That's a win. Because like before somebody gives you money, like you need to, if you can build like the most frictionless ascending ladder, like then you've got a pretty awesome business where you've got such an irresistible offer. People don't pay you with money, but they pay you with their data. They give you their contact details. The next offer right after that might be something really cheap, $50 a month or something, small little product. I mean, think about HighLevel, how many different feature sets there is. And they've actually announced now you can have up to 20 different SaaS plans. So it was limited to less, and actually 99 SaaS plans you can now create. So I've got, say, my plan is you pay and you get access to everything. But I could go and just do that one feature out of 100 features, just sell omni-channel inbox, price that like, at a very affordable rate, and have that as this is, if you look at HubSpot, for example, like this is their strategy pretty much. Right.
I think HubSpot created also the inbound marketing strategy as well. The entire marketing around using content. They've content factory teams. Yeah.
I remember one of the lead magnets was actually one of my tools in my toolbox, and it was for creating email signatures. And it was just a free lead magnet that you have to give them an email to get the code, but then you had a beautiful email signature that you could just use. So yeah, that's my type of like favorite type of marketing is inbound, is getting people to come to me because of the quality of or the value that's being provided through the content marketing. I'm a big fan of that. I'm not as much fan of outbound, but you kind of have to do both if you want to really make it work long term. But
Yeah, I'm thinking if you're early in the journey, you got to do more outbound, unfortunately. So that means that you got to go on Sales Navigator and send
all
emails and
those,
just do sales. But as your offers are becoming more mature and they become more established and there is a demand for it, you can then start doing more inbound. And I think going forward, the inbound PDFs are kind of starting to die down in terms of like how effective they are
like
as a lead
get an
magnet.
ebook for your
Yeah,
emails.
like people might download them, but they're just gonna drop them into a folder and forget about them. Whereas I think going forward, it's more about personalized lead magnets that's gonna be really sticky. So think
Mhm.
about cloud skills that you can provide based on your framework. Think about if you can build them a tool. You were saying about the email signature HubSpot created, and then you
Yeah.
give them an email for that. So if you can build these tools on your website based on your frameworks, like diagnostic quizzes and checklists that personalize based on the answers they give, and then you blurry their results until they give the email. Or you
Yeah.
give them like a high level result and then the details they need to give an email to get a detailed report. So one of the things I've done with my website is like basically an assessment where for companies who want to see like how good they are in terms of like their maturity in terms of AI, like whether they've got policies in place, are they safe and things like that. They go and answer 20 questions and they get a really like detailed report sent to them around vision, around data readiness, and around capability of their team.
So there's one thing that we discussed before we jump on to hit record on this is to provide you guys listening with a bit of bit of an offer. Is this what we've talked about? Did you want to
Yeah, I can show them
share a
the
screen and
assessment.
the assessment? Because I think I looked at it briefly and I think it makes a lot of sense. And from my understanding, from the quick look over when I looked at it, it covers areas of security, trust, and all those things that are going to be more important to businesses as well, right? Brilliant.
Let me see if you can see my screen.
Yes, that's it.
Oh, perfect. Basically, so this is my website. On my website, one of the actions you can take beyond booking consultation is go and do this assessment. Basically, it's for both consultancies and enterprises who are interested to start using more AI. And the way I've set up this assessment is that it goes across 4 different areas and checks.
There's just one thing that's just to overlay a little window overlaying your website. If you just move it off to the side a little bit, it's just a little riverside. Yeah, that little riverside window.
Is that
Yeah, that
better?
thing. Yeah, that thing. If you just move it down or
Okay,
something.
I see. Let me close it. There you go.
All right,
Is it
brilliant.
better? Yeah.
Yeah, way better.
That's perfect. So yeah, like essentially this is for companies to want to get some results around what they think that what we need to do additionally in terms of making sure that you're reducing your risk when it comes to implementing AI. So if you're a CEO, head of a company, like responsible for getting more AI adopted within the company, it asks you a bunch of questions to understand where you are in terms of your strategy vision, governance, data controls, if you've got policies in place, how good your data is. In this, do you have a good data readiness if you want to implement digital brains, where AI assistants are connected to various sources, and then how literate your team is when it comes to AI tools. Do they understand how to use it safely? Are they gonna be putting correct info into the right places and so on? So when you finish it, essentially what it gives you is like a report that looks like this. So it gives you like scores based on your strategy, governance, your data, and your team. And this is like takes, I don't know, 2 minutes to complete. So it's fair 20 questions. And those questions are detailed enough to give you different options in terms of which one is there. It gives you the results without you having to put your full details in. But if you want the full details, like that, like full, like detailed, like elements of each key risk and key recommended action and overall summary for the top priority steps, you need to put your details in and then AI will send you the report in email.
This is brilliant.
And
What
we get a
about
free
this?
bonus as well at the end. So you need to normally if it is a good lead magnet, put a free bonus as well. So here you would get a report based on like sources like HBA, Harvard Business Review, and a bunch of other sources why AI pilots fail and might stall in companies.
Yeah, I like it. And what I like about this page that you've built is how it's really focused on your target market, which
Yeah.
is
And
engineering in organizations. And
the beautiful thing is you can build these. There are software out there. There's a software called Score App that you can use to build quizzes, but you need to then pay them £30, £40 a month. This I built using Cloud Code.
so here's something you're gonna laugh. I know about ScoreUp, and when I was trying to build a lead magnet, it was about actually 4 years ago. If you open up another browser tab on your website there and go to from the puck,
But
sorry, yeah, you got it. There is up the in the menu get free audit right there. So now, I was gonna comment on your page that you were showing. What I like about what your page does, it has visuals of what the actual report looks like. Mine does touch on that a little bit, but I think it's like something that's like tangible. Like this is what you get. I think that's a really good one. But basically, what I've done there is it's a survey with 20 rapid fire yes/no questions.
Yeah.
And I completely build it inside HighLevel. So one question that's open-ended, most of them are yes/no. And then there's another question with just a selector of different software tools that the company has used. And then at the end, they just fill their details. And then that's how they submit and they get results. They're taken to a thank you page, which just says, cool, your actual results will be sent through in an email. But in the meantime, like book a call so we can go through it with you on the call. Now, what I've done is I build an automation in the back end that uses AI. I basically injected into the prompt all the different answers from all the different questions for AI to analyze how they answered. And this particular one gives you've got categories. So my one's got categories too, as lead gen, marketing, sales, and I think that's it. So 3 categories, and you get like an overall score. Each category is a combination of 8 questions, and then you also get like an overall score as well. Yeah, it's just interesting because when you were talking about ScoreUp, this is exactly why I built it. It's like I'm a big nerd. I like the challenge. I was like, I could sign up for ScoreUp, but you know what? Let me push this thing. Let me push this thing called HighLevel. How much can I do with this? And yeah, so
this is pretty good.
yeah, the UI could be better. I mean, there's always improvements, but you just put your details in there and then it
And
sends you. You can do that later if you want to have a look at it. Actually, it takes like
properly because I just answered a bunch of randomly.
yeah,
I
do
want
it
to
and let me
actually
know
get
what
the
you think.
proper results.
Yeah,
So,
but back to this one. So this is great. You know what? When I looked at it as well, what made me think right away is enterprise and mid-sized enterprise. Like we don't go after those clients. Most of us high levelers, we go after trade businesses, home services, gyms, and things like that. But I am very interested in enterprise clients as well. Like maybe not top enterprise, but like middle. And there's one thing that's really exciting that's brewing. I spoke to the owners of HighLevel a couple of times when I was at the Level Up Summit in Dallas, and I said to them, "Hey, there's certain when I was living in Australia, Canberra. Canberra is very public workers. There's a lot of government organizations. There's defense, and so businesses have contracts with defense. I can't have them as a client because they've got certain requirements, such as data being stored locally, being able to have the servers in Australia, Microsoft, and another one, things like that. So I spoke to them, and they've told me they are working on an enterprise capabilities with HighLevel that would be available. So having a lead magnet like what you've done is great. And guys, this is not just about copying what Ali's done. Ali has a very specific market, but I just wanted to think about how, as you're looking at this, that could also be a market, and you just have to come up with your own lead magnet and relevance to that market, but certainly not go after engineering because I've got no background in that. And
yeah,
you have to have some credibility.
So in terms of positioning, the reason I went after engineering is because it's lower competition. That's the only strategic reason, because you need to have engineering background to be able to understand and talk the market language. And the AI consultancies, there is a lot of them. And that was one way I decided to position myself to not have as much competition and stand out a bit more in the market. And
Yeah.
I would suggest look at your own founder background and try to find a founder market fit, founder product market fit, basically like create a Venn diagram and figure out where the middle ground is between all of the three. So for me, my background, heavy engineering, heavy AI. So AI consultancy and training was one. Then the market was engineering. I could go after retail, finance. There's all the other ones that pay. And but there's a lot of other consultancies in there. And also the product, which is basically the 4-step process I created for this. So creating some kind of IP and a standardized process where you deliver your services or your products. And this was like a lead magnet where I decided to create. And this is basically how it gives you like the results.
I like this. So you're not asking for the details. This is an optional extra if they want a full report.
Exactly.
I wasn't able to crack that on a high level side on how the results will be generated on a thank you page, which is why I sent it through an email, but you've done it there. So that's really cool.
So obviously this is cloud code. So you get full customization. So one of the things this does, once I submit this, the results of the report, like a full report is generated on my Notion website, where I can, on my Notion, to be able to see what the customer has responded to and like an entire like full report generated what their problems are. They get then that there is a sequence in Brevo where they get put in. So I have my email funnel in Brevo and they essentially get put in through an email sequence in Brevo, where they get sent the report once they provide their details, as well as that lead magnet. And then there is a 3-day, 5-day, and 7-day sequence to warm them up into booking a consultation.
Good classic lead nurture sequence. So important.
Lead nurture sequence, yeah.
Still amazing how many businesses don't have lead nurture in place. So yeah, well done. This is great. We're gonna put it for you guys so you can look at it. Yes, sweet, awesome. Thanks. So guys, if you want to just for inspiration, or if you're listening and you were literally an enterprise business in an engineering industry, then that's a place you need to go. But in general, for anybody, just head over to, what was the AI readiness? Was it AI?
It's buildyourai.com/assessment.
AI assessment.
So buildyourai.com/assessment.
Right. So you can go to that, or you can go to highlevelexperience.com/AI assessment. Cool with either. By going to the highlevelexperience.com/AI assessment, you'll be able to have access to additional goodies that we provide to all our listeners. And you can also explore some of our sponsored offers. And now, Ali, thank you so much, mate. We're at the end.
So much.
This was insightful.
It was very good. Thank you so much. It was insightful for me as well. I learned a lot about the double diamond technique.
Yeah, no, that's great. So yeah, we've dove into a lot of categories. I feel like towards the end, we really started to squeeze a lot of juice with some practical use cases, sharing your lead magnet, your journey. We talked about the sales process, how you sell high ticket, how I sell high ticket. So there's some real valuable, some real applicable, practical information that we've covered on this podcast, guys. I know that sometimes things can get lost in translation because this is a conversational style and there's words between the real nuggets, but that's kind of how it goes. My tip to you guys, if you want, and I think I mentioned it on the last episode as well, is this podcast, we're on YouTube where you can listen anywhere, but if you head over to our website, podcast.highlevelexperience.com, you can actually go through every single episode and there is a rich content. There is ready to copy transcripts. So you can just copy the transcripts, run it through your Claude, right? ChatGPT, whatever you want. And I promise you that in every single episode, there is a real strategy, real applicable strategy. We are past episode 100 now. We've had 190 an hour to 90-minute long interviews each. We've spent over 800 hours on this podcast at this point. Every time interviewing somebody from either the high-level community, fellow agency owners, vendors, top-level affiliates. There's been so many experts by this point. So all I'm trying to say is if you're struggling with your marketing business or your business in general, just go through it. There's a search function. You'll find what you're looking for. And then a lot of these are very timeless strategies as well. So it's just a little tip for you guys. Make sure that you apply something from every episode. And just like Matt DeSano's newsletter called Margin Makers, just making a small little marginal improvements week by week makes a tremendous amount of an upside when you look at it back at the end of the year. So, Ali, thank you so much again. If there's anything you'd like to leave the audience with, any last piece of advice, now would be a good time.
No, thank you very much. I would say the main thing would be to keep experimenting with these tools. One of the things I would suggest that I think we didn't cover is one of the good exercises to do for your business is to sit down and map out all the workflows for each department in your business. So when you look at your organizational chart, you will basically break down your business into departments. Each department consists of multiple workflows, and each workflow consists of steps. For each step, review if that step can be AI assisted or AI automated. And this is essentially how you can map automations to different workflows and different steps to gradually move your business from AI adoption towards full AI automation and higher maturity. So instead of like doing stuff manually, you can essentially use the system to figure out exactly which parts of your business you can automate. And yeah,
That's great.
Definitely check out my assessment, billyourAI.com/assessment, and definitely check out the Go HighLevel podcast as well. What was the URL again, Vit?
.com/AI.
HighLevel experience.
Just high level.
Right. Okay. And then also, what was the podcasts link if people need to download?
So that's podcast.highlevelexperience. It's just a subdomain, podcast.highlevelexperience.com. Yeah. Brilliant. Well, that was a great tip. I like that. I'm gonna add extra layer to it, which is my favorite, what Elon Musk says in his organizations every day. They look at something they can remove to keep it really lean, because I'm a big fan of lean. And recently one of those things, I've looked at my onboarding sequence, because I've been getting a lot of feedback from customers that they get overwhelmed by way too many emails in the first 2 days when they subscribe to us. And my thought was, well, I want to make sure they're really well educated. And it was actually creating a negative experience, even though I felt all well and good. You got to take the feedback to heart. And so I just removed 5 unnecessary emails. Some of them I removed, and some of them I spread out into a later date, just changed my wait steps. And now the customers are not as overwhelmed. So yeah, think about how you can automate the business more for better profitability, but also look at the experience of your customers or parts in your business or processes that are just way too complex that maybe not need to be, so that you can have more lean, all for the name of leaner business. Thank you so much, Ali. Thank you for being on the show, mate. I really appreciate you sharing your journey. It's been very insightful. And yeah, we're at the end, guys. So thank you so much as well to everybody that's listening to today's episode on the HighLevel Experience. If you've enjoyed today's episode, then please share it with your fellow agency mates and other high levelers that you think would also benefit from listening. For show notes, links, and extra tips to help you grow your agency or your SaaS with HighLevel, please go to highlevelexperience.com. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day, everybody.